Raptors took down the Wizards in Game 1, 114-106. Kyle Lowry finished with 9 assists, but perhaps his best highlight came after the game when he introduced Serge Ibaka. Say what?
The most stylish man in the NBA coming up. Come on, Serge. Show me your outfit. Come on, let me see that. Show me. Come on, Serge. Damn. Coming to the stage, Serge Ibaka. Ooh, look at these. Okay, with a turtleneck. What kind of suit is that? Versace. Versace. Yeah. He don't speak good English, so don't ask too many questions.
Ibaka also maybe is a little bleep you to Lowry. Did you see during the press conference? He answered one question in 3 different languages.
Oh, really?
After Lowry said speak good English, he said, okay, well, I can speak perfect English, a couple other languages too, Kyle.
Yeah.
How do you like that one?
Did he bring his toiletry case with him?
Yeah, because he's heading out. He's showered. He's heading to the car after that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Little Louis Vuitton bag.
Yeah.
Just to let the people know you can't hide the money.
Not his money neither, man. He got a lot of money. By the way, congrats to Toronto. We haven't talked about them on the show. They had not won a Game 1 of any playoff series since Vince Carter was on the team in 2001. They had lost 10 consecutive Game 1s.
Who was the coach of the team then, 2001?
2001?
You have to look it up.
Was it Butch?
Just look it up.
Butch?
Just look it up.
Butch Carter?
Just look it up.
I'll look it up. I think it was
Quickly.
Butch Carter,
Yeah.
Chris's brother.
Time for some stories
Our
to start your morning.
is Dusty's not here today, so Deontay's here, so we're going on a whim.
Dusty. Drowning in puddle.
It might be right, but there's a good chance it could be wrong.
I don't think Butch was still there. I think Butch's last year was 98.
James Harrison announced his retirement on Instagram this morning. Harrison played 15 seasons in the NFL, 14 of them in Pittsburgh. CC, how are you going to remember James Harrison on the field?
I love James Harrison. I mean, a throwback NFL player. If you go to any era, go to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, he could play for the Pittsburgh Steelers or anyone else that was trying to get to the quarterback. A guy, no name, a guy's been cut 8 times, made his body into being an NFL player. He's undersized, short, but he's done so much work as far as leverage with karate and everything to make him the great player that he was. So you're talking about someone who made himself. There are guys who are born and they have the body and the mindset to get in the NFL, and there are guys who have made themselves into NFL players, and James Harrison is in that elite class.
Listen, I know his workouts are legendary, and when people think about him, that's what they think about. Let's not forget this. A defensive player of the year, a player that made one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history with a 99-yard interception return before the half. That is a big reason they won that game against the Arizona Cardinals. Here's what I'll say, though. I'm not certain this is a full-on retirement. James Harrison's going to stay in shape now. Seems like a guy that maybe could get picked up for the stretch run late in the year by a contender. I wouldn't be shocked if we see James Harrison picked up by a team week 10 or 11.
I'm trying to partner him up with my partner, Jenna Wolf, so they can get on the gram. Man, those two working out on the gram, that would be a hit.
Love that.
Salt and pepper.
Maybe you guys would actually follow me on Instagram at that point.
We do follow you, Jenna.
To the...
And if we don't follow,
what?
we get...
direct texted.
In our
oh,
inbox.
You won't follow me on Instagram. Let me send it to you via...
To the NBA playoffs
Email.
now. It's so well received,
Telegram.
isn't it? Okay, we got it.
Stagecoach.
The Thunder beat the Jazz in Game 1. You guys are hilarious. 116-108. Paul George was the star for OKC, dropping 36 points in his playoff debut for Oklahoma City. Nick, how dangerous are the Thunder when Paul George plays like this?
Man, very dangerous. I thought this was a terrible matchup for them. I picked Utah to win this series. Now, I'm not changing that pick yet, but Game 1 has me wavering a bit. Paul George was outstanding. This was the blueprint. Have one of either Paul George or Russ play an A-level game, have the other guy play a B-plus level game, and hope you get some contribution out of Carmelo Anthony. That was the blueprint at the beginning of the year. We didn't see that enough throughout the year. We saw it in their most important game of the year so far.
I haven't seen Paul George play with this kind of confidence in a long time. It's a great thing to see. This is what OKC needs. When they put this team together, we thought that the only way that they could make it tough for people in the West was Paul George playing at the superstar level. That's what the playoffs is about. Let the role players play their role. But, man, we need the superstars to get buckets like Paul George. You see that, LeBron? We need you to do the same thing, the way Harden did, Paul George did, Giannis did, and others.
All right, the Sixers blew out the Heat 130-103 on Saturday. Ben Simmons was 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, scored 17 points, 9 boards, 14 assists. CC, how impressed were you with Ben Simmons in his first ever playoff game?
Very impressed. I was impressed with how cool he was, especially early in the game. He wasn't forcing. We know that he's limited as far as his range and shots, but being able to dish to his teammates, getting his teammates involved. I mean, he is a very unselfish player. Out of the same mold that Magic Johnson was built out of and LeBron, where their natural instinct is the first thing to be able to pass. So the moment was not too big for the NBA's Rookie of the Year, soon to be crowned later on this month.
Man, if people didn't watch this game, they were trailing at halftime.
Yes.
And they won by 27. They didn't have their best player, and they scored 130 points. Like, they're blitz in the second half. This is a team that is up there with the Rockets and the Warriors in this regard. Their ability to all of a sudden put together a 40-point quarter, like out of nowhere. We saw them do it to Cleveland a few weeks ago, saw them do it a couple other times during that winning streak. This is a team that hasn't lost in about a month. This is a dangerous basketball team, and what the Heat realized this weekend was you try to guard Ben Simmons by just playing off him, he's going to find the cutters. He's a 6'10" guy that can pass as well as almost anybody in the league. This is a really good team, and Embiid's not even back yet.
All right, finally moving on to the Rockets. They took on the Timberwolves. This one a lot closer than Houston would have liked. They did pull it out behind a casual 44 points out of James Harden. Chris Paul struggled. He scored only 14. He made some critical turnovers down the stretch, which Nick will explain. Nick, so we'll start with the positive first. How impressive was James Harden's performance in game?
That's MVP. It's an MVP when your teammates don't have it, and you got to have the win. And all of a sudden, all that great work you did in the regular season, you erase like that, you lose game one at home, right? You give away home court, 65 wins for your head if you lose this game. And by the way, his teammates weren't there for him. Clint Capella was. Other guys with the style the Rockets play, they are susceptible to a cold shooting night.
Yeah, they weren't there on the offensive end, but they were there on the defensive end. You know, so it was a good team effort. When you have a team that hadn't had a lot of success, or they have question marks as far as the postseason, man, you don't care how they win. You just want them to win, because good teams, even when they don't play well, they find a way to win. And the thing that was probably the best part about it was that their superstar, their MVP, Harden, he showed that at the end. He was able to bail them out. When no one could make a shot, when Chris Paul wasn't playing like he had a lot of confidence, it was James Harden against the pick and roll, step back, doing what he wanted to do. As an extension of what he did during the regular season, we were able to see that in game number one.
Man, if going into this basketball game, I tell the Minnesota Timberwolves, Trevor Ariza, P.J. Tucker, and Eric Gordon are going to go 5 of 21 from the field. Chris Paul's going to have half a dozen turnovers. That's a week for Chris Paul, typically. That the Rockets, outside of James Harden, are going to hit 5 3-pointers. They say, oh, we stole game one.
Yes.
All that happened, and they still lost because Harden was brilliant. And, CeCe, you're right. I would have been remiss if I didn't add. P.J. Tucker had a bad shooting night. Ariza had a bad shooting night. Those guys were very good on the defensive end. I can't gloss over that just because we don't have defensive stats to show you. But Clint Capella was great on both ends. Harden was spectacular on the offensive end. It shouldn't have been this close. And at the end, Chris Paul made a inexplicable decision on that pass when they're up 3 and they're trying to foul you. Just let them foul you, CP3. But they end up getting the win, and they're not going to shoot this poorly again the rest of the series. Like, the Rockets have to feel like everyone but James played their worst offensive game they're going to play, and we still beat them. We still got the win. I mean, that's a great sign.
On the other side, too, you look at Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to play better.
Yes.
So I'm sure Minnesota, Tibbs there, they had a good game plan. They should have took the ball out of Harden's hand late in the game, so they're expecting an even better effort in game number 2. This could turn out to be a good series.
Yep. All right, to the NFL now. For weeks, we've been anticipating the big Dallas Cowboys meeting between Jerry Jones and Des Bryant. The will he or won't he take a pay cut to remain a Dallas Cowboy? Guess what? In the end, the answer was neither. Cowboys' all-time leader in touchdown receptions was none too pleased, as you'd imagine. Reportedly, the meeting between Jerry Jones and Des Bryant took just 20 minutes. Bryant said that the, quote, Jason Garrett guys were partially to blame for the Cowboys letting him go.
Jerry Jones, he loved me to death, and I love him too. I honestly believe in my heart, this was a hard decision for him, but, when it's 5 or 6 guys at a table against one guy, you got to do it. The situation was very unfair to me, and I'll put it that way. It was an unfair situation, you know, because if they did want to, you know, get rid of me, they could have told me that. You know, they could have told me that, and I would have respected that.
CC, were the Cowboys unfair to Dez Bryant?
No, they weren't unfair to him. They did tell him. And it took him 20 minutes. NFL, don't take long for them to tell you that it's time to get stepping and going about your job. About 10 or 15 minutes, they collect all your belongings, make sure they get your pass, make sure you don't have no more access to the building. Like Dez, now Dez, in Dez's, what he's probably talking about is they should have released him at free agency. But this is business. It wouldn't have helped Dallas to release him at free agency because they didn't know if they could get Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins ended up going to Kansas City. Dallas wanted Sammy Watkins. He was their number one offseason target to replace Dez Bryant was Sammy Watkins. They couldn't get him. They also were interested in Allen Robinson. He ends up signing, Jacksonville receiver. He ends up signing with the Chicago Bears for big money. So what was their fallback plan? Allen Hurns, the other receiver, young receiver for Jacksonville, who they were able to get in a short-term deal that ultimately they decided either that and the draft is the way we're going to go about having a receiving core for this year. So the NFL, it's never fair. It wasn't fair for them to pay you the kind of money they paid you the last 3 years. You should have been giving them some money back. They made you one of the top-paid receivers, and you haven't had a 1,000-yard season since when?
All right, since
when?
Year 5.
2015?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's an eternity in the NFL. So when you start talking about what's fair, what's not fair, he's got plenty, ample opportunity to build a sign with another team. But this is how business is done. It's not a matter, is it fair or is it not fair? He has an opportunity to get with another team and prove Dallas out to be wrong, because what they said in this meeting was there is no amount of money that you can play for the Cowboys. You can't even take a pay cut. We don't want you in the building. Matter of fact, as far as what our culture is, you're not even a part of our culture moving forward.
Why do you think that is, Nick? Let's just give the audience a little context. Why is it? How bad do things have to get where we do not want you a part of our culture and part of our team?
Listen, he obviously was never on the same page with the head coach, wasn't on the same page with Jason Witten, and it seems like on the field, he wasn't on the same page with Dak Prescott. And so I want to talk about that because, so 2014, I should have said, was the last year he had a 1,000-yard season. That was also the last year Tony Romo was fully healthy. 2015, Romo was hurt and Dez was hurt. So it's like, okay, that's why the numbers aren't there. 2016, then, Dak's their quarterback, and the numbers aren't there. 2017, Dak's their quarterback, and the numbers aren't there, and now they're moving on. Chris, you've talked a lot about how young quarterbacks don't necessarily like to throw into tight windows.
Yes.
They like guys to be open. They like to see where they're throwing, similar to college. We saw that with Dak. We also, as football fans, saw that Tony Romo has a unique ability, something similar that you have, Chris, which is the mind, like a football savant mind.
Yes.
But that can act as a translator to non-football savants. I've watched games with you, and you're explaining in just common language what's going on. We saw Romo do that on TV. So I say that to say this. I wonder how much Romo had been acting as a translator for Dez in his career.
There is no doubt. It happens a lot of times when you have a veteran quarterback. He understands the small concepts of the offense, that he can communicate those to wide receivers. I've had quarterbacks like that before with me, either Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, veteran guys, Jim McMahon. He would say, listen, the coach is saying he wants you at 12 yards, but if they play you a little man-to-man, I don't want you to run a dig. I want you to kind of come back to me. So there's a lot of little small things to running routes or being in sync with the quarterback that I believe Tony Romo made Dez Bryant. And once Tony Romo, his health, and they decided to go with Dak as the quarterback, I believe that Dez, his overall productivity, began to suffer because it was obvious the relationship that he had with Dak was not what he had with Tony Romo. And Tony Romo was a breath of fresh air to come into the announcing booth and kind of talk layman's terms about not only what's happening on the field, because as fans, we can see what's happening. But Tony tells us we can anticipate what's going to happen and why things happen. And it's a huge help for a wide receiver when you have someone like Tony Romo. And there is no other excuse for Dez's productivity besides saying he's a little less athletic, and Tony Romo is not there.
Quickly, before we move on, where does this leave Dak Prescott?
Oh, well, for Dak Prescott, I mean, now, listen, I don't know that life got harder or easier.
That's my question.
I mean, I think you have less talent on the wide receiving core, but maybe you have less guys talking to you in the huddle. Maybe you have less guys griping at you. Maybe you're more at peace.
It's more your team.
What I do know is this. You know what's not good for Dak Prescott? If Dez Bryant goes to another team with a good quarterback and all of a sudden looks like the
Plays
Dez
really
from
well.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden we say, oh,
Maybe
the
it was
problem
Dak.
wasn't Dez, even though he's yelling and he's whatever. The
Yeah.
problem was the quarterback. That's what would be
You
bad
want your
for
quarterback, as Mangini tells us all the time, to be a force
multiplier.
Yes.
Dak. Absolutely.
All right, cut up. How concerned should the Cavaliers be after dropping game 1? Not very
Probably
concerned.
a little more concerned than I am and a little less concerned than CC.
Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in the middle.
Be concerned.